So welcome to our REDFeather Mind, Body, Spirit live event. I'm Christopher McClure, and today we have a very special guest, James Jacob Pierri, who is most recently the author and creator of Auset Gypsy Tarot. We want to catch up today to learn more about this wonderful deck and how to use it and what's ahead. But first, a little background on James. Auset Gypsy was the nickname given to James when he was a young and charismatic reader at the Mystic of the Seven Veils psychic venue at Universal Studios while studying at the Florida College of Natural Health and Holistic Sciences, which sounds fascinating. So Auset Gypsy transformed from a nickname to a brand, delivering top quality services to private clientele, including celebrities, politicians, authors, athletes, and others. James has had success with his online services. He's appeared on television shows such as MTV's House of Prophecy, Bravo's Housewives of New Jersey, Psychic Fridays on WPIX in New York, their morning show, the theme-related documentaries. Through years of dedication, he's in practice and studied metaphysical and occult arts. James has put these skills to good use for clients and in traveling presentations. He gives lectures and talks on a variety of magical subjects, including candle magic, divination, astrology, Isis mysteries, Wicca, goddess worship, spell casting, and more. How do you have time for more? And more. so glad you're here. How are you, by the way? How's your day going?
Hi, Chris. Oh, fantastic. I mean, we started with a crescent sunrise. How could we not have an interesting day after that, right?
I know. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. I'm sorry I missed that too. I guess I'll have to see it on the news or something. So, but anyway, so yeah, beautiful day. And I was just reminiscing on, how we were first brought together. And I think that we were brought together by an author of ours, Angelo Nacios, originally. He said, hey, I know this guy has a great idea for a deck and so forth. And and then I think I dropped by your shop, which at the time was in Easton, PA, and saw some images. It was like impromptu. I was out somewhere for something my daughter was doing out in Bethlehem. I was like, I'm pretty close to Easton. I just dropped in, and but great meeting, and I learned more about the Auset Gypsy, the history, and saw the images and your writing and things. And then here we are, a couple years later. The Auset Gypsy Tarot is finally here. I have my copy hot off the presses myself. It's amazing and great. It reads wonderfully. So, but before I wax poetic on the Auset Gypsy Tarot, I want to get a little more background on you for the audience and your tarot journey. So, how'd you get into tarot originally?
Oh, I just started about a week ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, okay.
It does go back way longer than a week, and I do owe a great debt to Angelo for introducing us, and I will make that up to him. He's a good friend. Culturally and forever, I won't give any stories about getting struck by lightning or any near-death experiences or anything like that, but there was enough other things and more that happened that substitute those kind of experiences. But sure. I have always had a fascination with astrology. It was culturally in the background. I'm from a little city called Hoboken, New Jersey, and where I affectionately call it the mythological city of Hoboken, New Jersey. And when I grew up there, it was like an old European little village. We were still seeing a lot of old world charm. So, who was fascinated with astrology? Everyone had, aunts or uncles who did astrology, and, everybody loved the palmistry. The card readings, that was really popular, but we didn't use Rider-Waite-Smith tarot decks. I didn't see that until much later in life. We used old-fashioned Italian playing cards, and then the old men would play with them, and the women and the men would read them. Like where I'm from, this wasn't reserved just for women. It was whoever had the gift or the sight to do it.
Okay. Fascinating. Why do you call it the mythological city of Hoboken?
Because the Hoboken that I grew up in and the Hoboken that's there now are two completely different places.
Oh, okay.
Now it's, hot real estate commodity. Back then it was like an old-fashioned European village. We had cultures from all over the world crammed into this mile-square place. So I was privy to seeing so much, so young, and right there in my backyard. We had a lot of Mediterranean, we had Italians, we had Irish, we had Germans, and then we had the influx of Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico in the 70s. We had a wonderful community of African Americans from the South move in. And then right down the main vein of Hoboken, we had Little India. It was, I don't know how the people from India found, little Hoboken, New Jersey, but they did. And then right down the middle was India. So we had all of these, and then there was a mix of other cultures. There was a smaller group of what would have been considered back then Polish people or Yugoslavian people. And it was just this mix. And so we had a lot of festivals, and everybody went to school with each other, and then everybody started marrying each other. So it was just a really diverse cultural place. Like my Christmas dinner looks like, you know, a night at the UN. Like there's everybody at the table.
Sounds like a recipe for indigestion.
Yeah, good food, really good food.
I'm sure. No, yeah, quite contrary. So with your journey there, it's fascinating that you didn't use the Rider-Waite-Smith, you know, what many people think of as tarot, and I think that is captured a little bit in the Auset Gypsy Tarot too. That uniqueness, you know, of it. So it's not, you know, put in that box necessarily. You can, if you understand the Rider-Waite-Smith, you can get it, but you don't have to. It's kind of its own, you know, system almost. It's really fantastic. It kind of straddles both, you know, both worlds in a sense. So, which I think is a great aspect, you know, of the deck here. So you are the Auset Gypsy. So Auset Gypsy is so much wrapped up, and you're even in your t-shirts even. So how were you christened the Auset Gypsy? What's that story? I want to get
Auset Gypsy began as a nickname given to me a long time ago when we opened up Mystics of the Seven Veils, which was the first psychic or fortune-telling venue, opened in a theme park, in a major theme park at Universal Studios, after Walt Disney had kind of outlawed that with the advent of Disneyland. He edited certain things for his theme park vision, and amongst those things were like strongman tattoo parlors and fortune tellers. And so Universal was doing something romantic, and they created this beautiful place called Lost Continent, and it looked like Atlantis and Sinbad's village from those old Sinbad movies, which who doesn't love those? And the rest of it looked like a Ren fair. Today, people know it as the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. But back then, when we opened it up, we had this illustrious, beautiful tent and really beautiful costumes. And we were the inhabitants of Sinbad's village. So it was like something from, you know, out of a dream, or like an old I Dream of Genie episode. And this was our life. We showed up every day, full-time career as readers. I mean, everybody did a different thing. But we had to start wearing name tags, and all of my friends had very exotic names, and I had James, and I was young, and I was always having to prove myself because I was young and because I was a guy, and those two things always equated to a young guy can't do readings, so I was always over-proving. So we had to start wearing name tags, and I didn't want to wear it because it just said James. I figured, oh, people are going to think I'm the guy who sweeps. And my friend Faria, she was the manager at the time. She gifted me this little box, and I opened it, and the name tag said Auset Gypsy, and I was like, what is this? And she said, well, because your muse is Isis, but everybody knows Isis as a girl's name. She's like, so I looked up a bunch of different versions of it, and the Egyptian pronunciation is Auset. Nobody in the world is going to know that but you. She goes, and Gypsy? She's like, because you're our you know, our tent gypsy. And leaning more towards romantic, you know, connotation of the word. And then that was it. Other friends in marketing and branding turned it into a logo, made my website, and they threw me out in the world. And here we are.
Here we are. So it's funny that that you were christened this within a magic box, and we have a magic box now that opens. How's that for segue? For the
smooth, I like it.
Smooth, eh? So so now we have the Auset Gypsy Tarot. So what inspired you to create the Auset Gypsy Tarot?
It was, you know, there's a funny story to that too. It's a two-part story. One, I did create the deck almost 20 years ago, and I did it because I felt as a tarot card reader, you get to a certain point of evolution with your practice, and it's time to really understand this device and its mechanisms. And one of the only ways to do that was to break it down and draw it and create it myself. You know, I hate to use Hollywood religion, but in a fun way, we could always say, you know how the Jedi Knights in Star Wars have to create their own lightsabers? Tarot card readers eventually get to the point where using somebody else's deck can only get you so far. And when you do this long enough, like I have, I don't know, 200-300 years, you decide you need your own language. So I drew them all out on index cards with watercolors and black ink, and they were beautiful. I mean, they were really, really ornate. They're ridiculously ornate. And so then I made a deck for myself, and I sold a couple here and there as art decks, and then put them away. And then over years of teaching and years of doing workshops and years of going everywhere, doing readings and whatnot, tarot contemporaries of mine who were once students, who became friends, and then excelled past me in publishing world, kept saying, James, when are you going to write your book? And I used to tease them and say, my life is not novel worthy. I'm more like a character in a comic book. And it hit me. And that's when my muse rang her bell. And I realized I wasn't going to tell my story in another tarot book. I was going to tell my story in a tarot deck. So I took that old deck out, you know, dusted it off. And literally, it was very cinematic. It was in a chest buried at the back of a storage unit, surrounded by things that looked like, you know, King Tut's tomb when they opened it. And I finally found it.
Booby traps too?
What'd you say?
Were there booby traps? Were there?
Oh, absolutely booby traps. Things were falling down on me, sticking me in the knee.
There should have been. Yeah.
No curses, though. No curses.
Flying up. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there were swords. Yeah, there were absolutely swords in there. And
well, yeah, that was
and robes, large Egyptian statues. And so I took that out, and then I realized this is what I need to bring to life. But then it became a big decision when you and I talked about what decision to go with what path. And this opportunity was so golden to me that you presented me with that I didn't want to waste it at all. I wanted to make sure that every step was golden, literally. And I decided it was probably going to be smart for me to take my idea and my baby and work with contemporary illustrators, because I wanted to go beyond just one demographic of tarot card readers. I knew that the deck I created would have talked to only one group, and it would have been beautiful and they would have appreciated that. But I wanted this to go everywhere. I wanted this to resonate with everybody. And that was the catalyst.
We speak about golden. You keep giving me these segues. This was not rehearsed. So the cards are gilded, which was a surprise. Which was a surprise to you. We hadn't mentioned that. It was a touch. And we were talking before the program a little bit how you love how it kind of like gels together, like just the borders and then the gilding around it, just kind of like it pops together, really. So that's one of the things I love about, you know, this and just the feel of the cards themselves. You know, they're on a stock that's just heavy enough, not too heavy. I think it's like 350 or 400 GSM for those publishing nerds. So it shuffles well, holds up well over a lot of readings as well. So yeah, so that's thanks for the segues. I appreciate that.
Oh, look, no, thank you for the surprise of the gold. You don't understand how much that meant to me, meant the world to me, because I love golden trimmed tarot decks. And then when the surprise came that the Auset Gypsy Tarot deck was going to be gilded, it made my life. Thank you.
You're like, wow, wonderful. So within this process, what did you? It sounds like you enjoyed a lot about creating it. Is there anything that you enjoyed the most about creating it? I remember early on, you would be emailing me. It's like, well, what about this? Or calls like, what about this or this? And there's a lot of collaboration, I should say, throughout the process, which was a lot of fun. So, any particular things you enjoyed about bringing this into fruition?
In other words, everybody, Chris is saying James was a pain in the neck. No,
I was not saying that at all.
Affection. Nope. I was a pain in the neck. I'll be the first one to admit it, because I was so excited. And I say that with a lot of humor. Chris was nothing but patient and enthusiastic and supportive in this whole entire process. So thank you. Most people wouldn't have ever been nearly as patient and supportive as you were. When I went to make the deck, of course, the Aquarius in me was like, you need to contribute something new. Don't do something that's already been done. That would be a wasted opportunity. So I wanted something robust and colorful, because I'm robust and colorful. Auset Gypsy is robust and colorful and very multi-layered. So I wanted something adventurous. And then at the same time, I really did want to stick to some traditional roots. And I knew that from the very beginning, because even in my original deck, on the minor arcana, I affectionately dub Rider-Waite-Smith and anything past that the cheat sheet cards, because they took the liberty of creating, images on all the minor arcana cards, the ace through 10 of whatever. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to take it back old school and go really romantic with this, because we grew up using the Italian playing cards that when people see them, they think they just look like little tarot cards, and they are. But the swords and the cups and the coins and the wands don't have pictures. They're just the 5 of or the 6 of whatever the suit is. And I wanted to go back to that, and I wanted to pay a homage and a nod to 2 very important moments in my life. One, when I got myself my own tarot deck, my first tarot deck was the Cagliostro. And a lot of older readers at that time would tell me, you're too young to be able to use that deck. And almost how dare you use that deck? And I didn't know any different. Then I felt that deck alone still didn't have enough of what I was looking for. So with a black pen, I put more symbols and things actually on the cards. So when I went for my interview or audition at Islands of Adventure, before we opened up Mystics of the Seven Bells, even my boss said, well, one, I can't hire you because you're a guy, you're a young guy, and what do you read with? So I pulled out the Cagliostro deck, and she was like, no, I can't believe you know how to use these. And I read for her, and she's like, you're hired, because she herself used European playing cards. She used Austrian playing cards. So that's what landed me and nailed shut that job for me, which catapulted me out into the world. So it was important for me to include that in the Auset Gypsy Tarot deck.
I'm thankful that you brought that up too. The reasoning behind that, going back to more the old school, the homage. But even so, within these, they're so beautifully illustrated. The minor arcana too. So I just pulled out some wands here. So just there's so much that's within them too, and also too, I'm seeing a lot of movement back towards Marseille style too. Yeah. So with the non-illustrated pips and going into that more tapping into that innate ability through those kinds of cards, I think is powerful and important. And thank you for illustrating kind of your reasoning, behind why you did that too. So so then I guess so you read for the interview and boom, on the spot there. So now, do you read often in your own personal? I know the answer, but do you read? So yes. Do you read often?
Do I read for myself?
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wasn't introduced to a lot of these what I consider funny tarot superstitions until I went through the New Age circuit in my late teens, early 20s. I was always blown away by a group of such spiritually liberal-minded people with so many dogmas and rules. I didn't understand it. Where I come from, we didn't have that. And the whole thing of you can't buy yourself a tarot deck, you can't read for yourself, you can't read the death card. And I was like, oh, these people obviously never met any of the old ladies that we'd go to card readings for down the block where I come from. They'd make really strong Italian coffee and, put out a spread of food, and they'd be spewing the ace of spades everywhere. But it taught me responsibility. And so these funny superstitions related to not reading for yourself, I can't even imagine. The tarot is such a sacred book and such a powerful metaphysical device that we have to read for ourselves, I believe, because you can use it in so many different ways. In Italy, there's a tarot game called tarocchi. And then you can use it as a game. You can use it for fun fortune telling. You can use it for metaphysical growth and inspiration. You can use it for personal insight. You can use it for magical purposes. The tarot deck is a mobile altar, isn't it? It has all 4 elements and all 4 magical accoutrements. You don't even need to bring anything on vacation with you but your tarot deck. As long as you approach the tarot with reverence and respect, it becomes your best friend. All those characters in there become your friends, and you can let loose with them sometimes. So yes, I do read for myself. That's important.
Wonderful. Yeah, there are very. It's funny you talk about superstitions and so forth. That theme seems to be a constant throughout your journey here, where you didn't know any better, basically. You didn't know what conventions were, and so that allows you to be beyond convention, and I guess maybe to create something that's new, beyond what is kind of static. So, which has led to, I think, why this is such a great deck. So within your travels, how has the industry changed, or the mind by spirit world, or the acceptance of tarot changed over the time that you've been doing, over the last 200-300 years you've been doing this?
Yeah.
How long has it changed?
The funny thing is, the more things change, the more things stay the same. I have been doing this my whole life, and professionally, this is all I've done with my life. So it's not a hobby. It's an absolute devotion. It's a profession. The advent of social media, like most other industries, if we're going to sound so technical and professional, has changed the course and face of tarot and so much metaphysics. Because at one time, when there was only one or a few of me, when I was younger and robust, long before social media, back when the telegraph was created, it was so rare. One of the things that people liked about Auset Gypsy was I had to make a decision and to commit to this professionally. And I was taking a very long shower, as Aquarians tend to do. And it hit me, how am I going to do this that's different? Because at the time that I started, you had two kinds of readers. You had Sylvia Brown, who looked like, power suit, bob haircut. She looked like she was walking into a board meeting. Or you had people dressed up as Esmeralda and Renfair. And, it was still kind of trapped within this like fantasy world, which both are great. However, I didn't fall into either one of those categories. I was pursuing a career in music as a singer and, rock music and pop music. And it was at that moment that I realized I'm going to marry my rock star, pop star image to this tarot card reading gig and see what happens. And that's what the public loved. They loved that. So at that moment, tarot changed, because I was working with a lot of people more mature and older than me, and I loved the experience for the good and the bad I had with all of them. They didn't love my image. And then for a long time in certain tarot communities, I was dubbed, the rogue tarot card reader. They didn't like that I had the word gypsy in my name. They thought I dressed a little too, eccentric or, rock starish, or my look was too sexy sometimes. They didn't like that. So I just went my own way and just always did my own thing and did it because I loved it. I wasn't trying to be accepted anywhere. Like those worlds I didn't understand. Now, flash forward to the advent of social media, Instagram and TikTok. There's thousands of me when I was at that age all over the world doing it. So I love seeing it. It's so exciting, because for a long time, at that time, when you didn't know, you thought you were the only one behaving, looking, and practicing like this. But now they're everywhere. So it's changed so much. And, tarot, throughout its whole entire history, has had its peaks and valleys. And I don't even think we've seen the peak yet. I think we're still like inclining up towards the peak before we see it go into another valley. So it's fascinating to see that at this moment in time, an unprecedented amount of tarot decks coming from tarot deck creators and artists all over the world. It's brilliant.
So now one of the originators of the look and the atmosphere and everything finally has his own deck. So it's come full circle now. So within that, understanding, what people are into and the peaks and valleys. That's a great, analogy. And I agree. It seems to be going, and it's ascending to the interest and the acceptance of tarot and divination, cartomancy, all things metaphysic, really in general, too. So now I think you have a advantage in that you've been a retailer for a while. So do you feel that being a retailer has given you kind of like a different viewpoint into what consumers are looking for?
That's such a smart question and an important one. One of the things I learned very early on was how to do this successfully. And the funny thing is, there is no metaphysical and magical answer to attach to that other than I grew up in an environment of hair salons and spas. So from a very young age, I was the assistant. And there were no computers back then. I would have to take the phone calls, book the appointments by hand in a book, call people to remind them of their appointments, deal with the public. And that whole business concept was the model of which my success was built on. Most people want to hear it was, gods of good fortune and candle lighting and rituals and ceremonies in the middle of the night or early in the morning. Those things work too. But it was a concrete plan underneath that did that for me. I was already very secure in how to build a clientele and maintain it. So that was very natural, where I saw a lot of people really want to do this and really love this to do it professionally, but had no business plan, and they suffered. And some of the readers were really, really, really good, but it can only be a hobby or part-time for them. And I know it's not easy. So, not looking down my nose at them, I know their struggle. It's a hard challenge. It really is. So again, when the concept of the Auset Gypsy Tarot was brought to REDFeather and you and I met and talked about it, I wanted to make sure this wasn't a wasted moment commercially, which again is why I chose to work with the two illustrators, Becca Stotzenberg and Heather Scott, that I worked with, because I liked their style a lot. It was totally different than anything I personally like. I never really got into anime. I love Disney romantic animated films like everybody else. But when I saw both of their styles, and neither of these artists know each other, they're from two completely different corners of my world, I loved their style. And I knew that those artists, working with them was going to be what was new 21st century to deliver to the history and tapestry of tarot. So thinking as a retailer, thinking of this as a commercial success without stripping it of its sentimentality, of its tradition, of its symbology. The artists taught me a lot about editing, because like you heard me say earlier, my original deck was a flurry of details. And I taught them about the power of symbolism in art, because neither of them were tarot card readers. So it was an experience for all of us. So when wanting to present something to the public, having worked in metaphysical shops and having had 3 of my own, I know who my audience was, and I was paying attention to what people were looking for when they would ask for tarot decks. And a lot of the question always was, what tarot deck do you suggest for a kid, a beginner, somebody not even interested in this, somebody that's looking for something not scary? For some reason, people have in their head that tarot decks are scary. So I kept all of that in mind when really keeping the integrity of the tarot work in the Auset Gypsy Tarot deck, but also keeping in mind what people were looking for as well too.
Exactly. No, that's an important point too, and it really, there's a beautiful balance throughout this. You mentioned about the the cleanliness of the art, and the style, but then having the symbolism within it. So I just pulled this Hierophant card, which I believe is based Mythos. Is that it?
Mythos, yeah.
It's
inspired from the story of the Metamorphosis.
Highlighting isn't the best, but anyway. So I mean, there's really just enough detail within this card, but not overwhelming. So you get the point across. And to that point too, I do want to mention in the book itself, for all the major arcana. So I just opened it. This is my card for the day, is Hierophant, I guess. I just opened that particular. There you go. So
there you go.
Interesting. So you have the astrological associations within there, the traditional meanings. So for those who want the traditional meanings of the cards, then you have the Auset Gypsy meaning too. Then the neat thing about this is there's a story that's woven throughout the majors as well about this character and the journey too. So you really, if nothing else, it's a good story.
Well,
woven. Yeah.
I'm a storyteller, and as a tarot card reader, that's what I do. People come to me, they sit before me, I flip and throw these cards, and they allow me to tell their story back to them. And I've always been a storyteller ever since I was a kid. And when I finally committed to this as a vocation and as a calling, I realized there was nothing else I could do in my life. You know, even when I was pursuing entertainment as a singer and a performer, what was that? I was singing. I was telling stories. There was no way out of this for me. One way or another, I was going to be a storyteller in this life. And I'm glad you brought that point up in the book, which you did such a phenomenal job with that book, because the origin of what we agreed on with that book and what it became to be, again, are two different things that I was so excited about. And I wanted to give Auset Gypsy, again, contributing to the tapestry of tarot history. After all of these years of doing this, I had something to say. I had something to contribute. So I wanted to give people choice, because the tarot is what? The game of choice in life, right? So I think choice is powerful, and especially with the tarot, because that's what it's teaching us, intuitive choice. Even if you flip the cards over and actually, and this is really old school fortune telling, and actually look at the cards and pick the ones you want by what you see. That's a way of doing it. People don't do it that way anymore, but that is a thing. I wanted to give them the choice to see my experience from what I learned over all these years. These cards meant they spoke to me a little bit differently than traditional. But I also wanted to maintain tradition, because that's important to keep that going. And then the story component that you're talking about, the tarot is just this great story, and all the good elements are in there. And I wanted to be able to tell it.
Yeah, and tells it again, reads really well, and the way, and it's funny you talk about the book. Originally it was good. You had the thought, okay, a little book and these kinds of things, and it kind of grew. And the beautiful thing is it has a presence, the deck itself, you know, with the cards and the way, the size of them, the size of the book, and the size of the deck as well. But also too, you know, at $24.99, it's a pretty good, you know, it's a sleek value too for a lot of fantastic information as well. So you do so many different things. What's your overall like creative process like? I mean, it's like I know that within the time that I've known you, you've had you've had podcasts, and you know you have your line of different of your clothing and the cologne and then all that. So what's the creative process like? Or is it just like, okay, today I'm going to do this?
It's pretty much. I know no bounds.
Let's do this.
I know no bounds. I pay attention and I look at things, and you know I look at what's smart for Auset Gypsy at the moment and the time. You know, using the fragrance as an example. Well, I studied aromatherapy and herbalism, so I wanted to contribute that to Auset Gypsy. And the funny story connected to that is that ever since I was an adolescent, everyone who came close to me or hugged me would always say, "Oh, you smell so good. If you bottled that, you'd make $1 million." So I did. And so, you know, waiting to make the $1 million still, but it's on its way. And so that helped. Again, it was a personal thing. That was just another trigger. It was like, oh, well, it's obvious. Auset Gypsy needs a fragrance. People like the way I smell. When people come into my locations, whether they are full-on shops or just tents set up at events, the first thing everybody always says is, "Oh, it smells so good in here." And it could either be an aromatherapy candle I made, or incense that I burn, or you know the essential oils themselves. So scent, it's the full experience. You know, I want people to have the full experience. So not only do they just see, it awakens the intuition. It hits all the senses at once. So, you know, it kind of hits all the 5 points of the pentacle.
Amazing. Maybe for a second edition, we'll have a scent to it or something. We'll have a
scent. Let's do it. Oh my, yes.
And this is what we do all the time. It's like, you know, we'll have like an hour-long conversation about different, now this and this and this. You know, they're like, we have about like 5 products thing kind of planned out.
You guys heard it here first. So we'll get on that.
We're on it for sure. So boy, we're plowing through our time here. So would you mind if we did a reading for the audience from the Auset Gypsy? I'd love to do a reading about what their summer might be like, if that's okay, like just coming up, what maybe expect. You know, we're coming out, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, you know, from the master himself.
Now here we go. Now here's even a little lesson. Remember, your left hand is the moon hand. You make it like a little claw. Your right hand is the sun hand. And so it looks like, you know, the sun with the rays coming out. And when you meditate on your cards, before you shuffle them, breathe in and take the energy from your heart chakra and send that energy through your right arm, through your sun hand, put it through your cards, receive it with your moon hand, right back to your heart. This kind of puts you into close contact with the cards and wakes them up. Until then, they're just little pieces of cardboard. But if any of you have taken fencing classes, you know that the tip of the blade is now just an extension of your will and your mind. So this is what happens when you start shuffling the cards. You're giving them life, and they're becoming an extension of your intuition. So let's see. We'll pick 3, like you said. We'll do it a little different, though.
Okay.
First card. Ooh, I knew this was going to come up. The Tower.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, let's look at this just a little bit. The Tower is a very potent and important symbol. When we get a little too comfortable in one way, that lightning from heaven kind of takes down our guard. And at first, it could feel like it's shock, but it's actually freeing us from what we've been stuck in. So, starting with the Tower, prepare yourself for change, which is the obvious traditional definition. But from my point of view here, go with the unconventional. Break out of routine. Now we'll go to the middle of the deck. See the second card. Ooh. The 3 of Wands, which in this deck, I made caduceus, the very powerful symbol of the staff of Mercury, but many different gods and goddesses traded it down to each other in lots of different mythologies. Look that up. When we see the 3 of Wands, traditional definition, golden opportunities laying off in the distance, right? Kind of recalls the Rider-Waite-Smith of the person sitting with one of the wands looking out at a vast lagoon or sea or port.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Auset Gypsy traditional 3 of Wands. Now that we've had the Tower and things that have blocked us, that made us comfortable, are being removed, look for new opportunities in places you wouldn't have already looked. That could be the key to your success. Don't keep going to the same place twice. Try new things. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the 3rd, which is the 5 of Wands. And traditionally, people always see that card as a bit of strife, and it does contain certain strife to it. Now, depending if you read it right side up or reversed, it could mean some physical challenges coming your way. However, I look at it from a different point of view. I see it as a bunch of people coming together, and the Auset Gypsy point of view would be you're a key important component to rebuilding something. So we have the Tower, which is something by nature falling apart. We have the 3 of Wands, which is introducing us to new ways of looking at things and new opportunities and how to channel your energy. And then the 5 of Wands, which is an active card, which is suggesting we jump in and contribute our skills of what we have to help rebuilding. So although there was nothing in there about laying at the beach and sitting at the bottom of the pool all summer, it seems to be a moment of getting out there and doing.
Yeah. Fantastic. Interestingly enough, like when so that gives myself, I'm sure a lot of other people, a lot of food for thought there. Earlier this morning when I was looking through your deck, ironically enough, the Tower popped out of the deck. So that was one. And then earlier when I pulled another card, I pulled the 3 of Wands, and the 5. So these cards are like kind of like simmering and wanting to be found. Now what would be interesting, it would be if the 4th one actually was the Hierophant. That would be really freaky, actually.
Let's see.
So
Tower again.
Oh no,
Queen of Cups. Well, we won't tempt the fates. You know, the Hierophant card, if you don't mind just going back to him for a second. I had a mission with the Hierophant card. It had to be something very personal to me. I started to discover in watching other people teach tarot, and even the public's reaction to the Hierophant, became a very negative connotation card, because earlier decks always displayed them, or illustrated them as popes or look like Catholic clergy. But what we have to understand is, back in those days, that was the usual uniform for religious and holy people. They borrowed that look from pre-Christian times, the vestments and whatnot. So I never saw it as a terrible thing. I grew up in a quasi-Catholic pagan background to begin with, and so I never had to wrestle with any of that. It was a very positive thing. But I noticed a lot of people never liked that card, and it started becoming a negative card because people were attaching to it maybe bad memories or social standards these days of how they view religious leaders. And I didn't want that card because it's such an important card. Everyone wants to love the High Priestess, of course. It's Vivienne from The Lady of the Lake of Avalon. It's we can fill in the blank of who everyone projects her to be. It's fantasy, it's romance. We love her, but then to love her, but then all of a sudden to not even respect the Hierophant, that was creating an imbalance, I felt, to me. So I wanted to create a high priest that has a really good connotation to remind people the Hierophant is not a bad guy. So I pulled from the story of Apuleius, of the Metamorphosis, or the Golden Ass, where Apuleius has to go and find the Isaic priest, the priest of Isis, to change him from a donkey into a human again, because he's cursed. And Isis comes to him in a dream and says, go to Mithra. Mithra gets the same dream and looks for the donkey in the crowd and feeds him roses and turns him back into a human being. And he's a very positive character in that story, and he's a very positive liaison between the goddess Isis and Apuleius in the story. And so that was my gratitude to Mithras. So I wanted to bring back a positive connotation to the Hierophant card, and I hope people realize that and see it when they read with their Auset Gypsy Tarot deck.
Thank you for that insight into that one card. Yeah, I think we talked about you're doing maybe an expanded series on the cards too. You have planned to go into that, because you can really do so much into just one card. Each card is kind of its own meditation unto itself, and the perspective that you bring to it is unique and fresh. And I think that's kind of like comes from your heritage and just all events in your life and how this came into being. So I guess the burning question is, what's next? What lies ahead for the Auset Gypsy?
Well, it's certainly not retirement, but I would love to expand into all different things. There's been interest in taking these tarot major arcana characters and turning them into comic book series or even cartoon. Now, I'm excited about that. I don't know anything about comic books. I'm guilty by association because a lot of close friends of mine are very successful comic book artists and even played superheroes on TV. So that's about as much of that world as I really know. But the closer I get to their world, I realize, well, it's not too much different than our world, in metaphysics, is it? So that is definitely a direction I look to expand into, because I would love to be able to take the story that you talked about in the instructional book that comes with the deck and expand it into a 4-part or more comic book series to, contribute tarot to a completely even new level in 21st century. The tarot has been a theme in a lot of movies and, touched on in different comic books, but it would be fun to take these major arcana characters and really give them a life in a setting. They've already started to take form in this deck, but to give them something more animated someplace else that would also teach metaphysical principles and teach how to use the tarot, in an entertaining kind of way.
Definitely, that's fascinating. I'm already thinking about possibilities, but we'll see. We'll talk after.
Right? No, we're going to make the next deck scratch and sniff. You're going to be able to smell every card. You get a comic book going. It's true.
I just said scented. So we do have a couple comments here there. So Peggy Keller says she can confirm how great the fragrance is. Okay, the soul fragrance.
Thank you.
So many compliments when I wear it. Peter Coe says he just going to bring it into his inventory for his fairs. He travels all around. I believe he's in West Virginia area, that area too. So thanks, Peter, for that. So so are you on social media? I know the answer. Yes. Can your followers interact with you? How do they do that?
Through Ouija board. No.
Ouija board, okay.
21st century Ouija board. I am available in all platforms everywhere. Chat with me through your Auset Gypsy Tarot deck. I will talk back. Or Instagram, Facebook. You can get in touch with me through my website, which is ausetgypsy.com. I am not hidden. If you type in James Jacob Pierri or Auset Gypsy, you're going to get flooded with tons of pages of all sorts of stuff. So have fun with that. And don't be shy. You know, you can come at me direct. I'm going to be offering a gratis to everyone who pre-ordered their decks and waited so patiently during the import-export debacle of 2021. So it's free. And I want to say thank you to everybody. And even if you didn't get the deck yet, come on down anyway. Email me and let me know you want to participate in this class that night. It's going to be on Zoom from the comfort of your own home. It's going to be July 15th at 7 o'clock. It's a 2-hour class, and it's going to be specifically on the Auset Gypsy Tarot. So little glimpses of what you got here between Chris and I, you're going to get in fuller discussion there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much, James. James, this has been a fantastic live event, as they have been. This really ranks up there with one of my favorites. The Auset Gypsy Tarot is available at REDFeatherMBS.com, and wherever Mind by Spirit items are sold, AusetGypsy.com, wherever you want to get it, you can get it. Go out and get it. So many thanks to you all, and have a beautiful, beautiful day.